It's over to you, Matt, to play that video.
Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of Assembly Bill 361, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should mute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice for public comment guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Thank you for that. Emily, I think it's time for you to conduct the roll call.
Member Chahal?
Yes. Yes.
Member Esquivel?
Present.
Member Essel Sagoe? The member from Hercules, are you able to? We will come back to him. Member Miller? Member Moriarty?
I'm here.
Member Patel?
Here.
Member Saunders?
Here.
Member Shakiran?
Here.
Member Stark?
Here.
Member Wayne?
Here.
Vice Chair Carr?
Here.
And then Member Essel Sagoe from Hercules, are you able to unmute? Okay, we do have a quorum with members Banker, Bristow, Hammond, and Ash absent.
Excellent. And I'm disappointed that Chair Ash isn't here today because he's worked hard to get new members on the committee, and we've actually had success with that. And there are 4 new members tonight, and he doesn't have the honor of welcoming them, and I do. So without any further ado, I want to acknowledge Dennis, and I'm probably going to miss the last name. I should have been paying closer attention to Emily's pronunciation. Seligo?
Sego. Hi, everyone. I'll have my
Hello.
video camera on in just a few. I got to get my connection working properly. But yes,
Okay.
it's Sego.
Sego. Well, welcome. While you're working to get your camera on, anything you'd like to say to introduce yourself to the committee?
Sure. I'll make it brief. So Dennis Sego. I am professionally, I'm one of the investment officers for the city and county of San Francisco. So we manage the pension trust. Specifically, I work on the fixed income team. And then so I've been doing that for about 8 years now. Yeah, it's great. I live in Hercules. and I've been in Hercules for about 3 years now. So that's the very, very brief intro.
Excellent. Always like to have folks with a financial acumen when we're looking at some of these reports from the various cities and towns regarding their programs. Three new at-large members. First is Sheena Patel. Welcome, Sheena, and welcome to make a brief introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sheena Patel. I'm an at-large member, but I reside now just over the last 2 years in Brentwood. Prior to that, I'd lived in Contra Costa County since I think 2008 or so. And professionally, I'm a civil engineer, so my background is in transportation, and I work on transportation projects around the Bay Area. And so I'm excited to be part of this committee. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Next, and did Nazanin make it on today or no? There she is. Sorry.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, Nazanin Shakaran. Did I get close
Yes.
anyway?
Yes. Thank
And
you.
welcome. And would you like to provide a brief introduction?
Sure. My name is Nazanin Shakarin, and of course you can call me Nazi. That's what everybody calls me as a nickname, if it's easier. I am retired transportation engineer, and I worked over 30 years in the transportation engineering field, both in public and private sector. I live in Alamo. Actually, I've lived in Contra Costa County for 35 years now. And my passion is transportation. So now that I've been retired for a few years, I thought that I'll give back to the community and get involved in transportation, which is something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I hope that I can contribute and work with all of you on these projects. So thank you for having me.
Excellent. And we're almost neighbors, so we'll have to
Well,
run into a trail.
I used to live in Danville, but now I'm in Alamo.
There you go. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for that intro. Nazi, right? Not that can't be.
Nazi.
Nazi, I'll get it right. And then lastly, welcome at-large member Nicholas Stark. And likewise, Nicholas, would you like to provide a brief introduction to the group?
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys for having me here. I'm super excited to contribute. I am actually just graduated from college, so I will be by far and away the youngest person on this committee, which is just exciting. Right now, professionally, I work in labor relations for the company Pacific Maritime Association. May or may not have heard of it. We negotiate and administer longshoreman contracts up and down the West Coast. So that's what I do during the day. I'm here just to contribute and offer sort of a perspective that maybe isn't on this committee. And I look forward to doing that.
Excellent. Thanks very much. And I think it's great that we have a variety of perspectives and longevity on the group. So super. Next item on the agenda is our opportunity for public comment. I would preface that on the chance there's anyone from the public that we don't condone hate speech in any form and strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. Emily, is there anyone from the public on the call at this time?
I do not see any members of the public on the call, and we have not received any public comments.
Excellent. Thanks for that confirmation. So with that, the next item on the agenda would be the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from our last meeting, which was some weeks ago on October 25th, and acknowledgement of the said member attendance log for that meeting. Are there any changes or comments from the committee on the consent calendar items? Emily, any written public comments regarding same?
We have not received any written public comments.
And we have no one from the public to speak, so I can ask for a motion for
Yeah, I see
approval.
no.
Member Esquivel. Oh, sorry.
I'll
Go ahead.
second that motion.
Okay, I think we have a motion from Esquivel and a second from Member Miller. And with that, I think, Emily, you can conduct a roll call vote.
Member Chahal,
Here.
Member Esquivel,
Yes.
Member Esso Segoe,
Yes.
Member Miller,
Aye.
Member Moriarty,
Yes.
Member Patel,
Yes.
Member Saunders,
Yes.
Member Shakiran,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Member Wayne,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Carr.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Bankert, Bristow, Hammond, and Ash absent.
Thank you, Emily. We will now move to our regular agenda items, for which there are three. The first is an action item to be introduced by Matt and ultimately presented by the City of Antioch to review their calendar year 2020 and 21 growth management program compliance checklist. So over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Carr. And I'm just going to provide a short introduction before getting to the City of Antioch, just because we do have 4 new members in the room tonight. We are kind of winding down through the 20 jurisdictions in the county, the approval of their checklists. So the new members will get to see a few more before we're done for several months until the next cycle begins. But I just wanted to give you a brief introduction on what you're going to be seeing tonight and kind of what to look for both in your packet and from the cities tonight. So the growth management program compliance checklist is really the mechanism for our 19 cities and towns and the county to demonstrate their compliance with the growth management program, which is part of the Measure J sales tax for transportation here in Contra Costa. Each city is required under the growth management program to do several things. There's 13 items in the checklist. 12. One is kind of an other. So there's really 12 items in the checklist. Every 2 years, each jurisdiction is required to demonstrate through this checklist that they have been doing a variety of activities that are required under the growth management program. And one of the main reasons for having the growth management program is to kind of be able to assess the impacts of land use development on the transportation system. So it's really kind of a unique thing for Contra Costa County that we have this way of analyzing those impacts from development on the transportation system. And you've probably heard of the urban limit line and things like that. That's one of the core components of the growth management program. And it's just one item on the checklist where cities are required to have a voter approved urban limit line, but there's several that usually doesn't change over time. There are several items on the checklist that are updated every 2 years, and that's really what we want to hear from the presenters when we invite them in to present their city or town's checklist. So really focusing on the development that's occurred and how they're mitigating that development, how they're spending their transportation funds, just major projects and things like that. We want to get a feel for how they're implementing, the growth management program in their jurisdiction through these various requirements. So it's a little bit esoteric, but hopefully the more checklists you review and the more presentations you see from the different jurisdictions, the more you'll get a feel. And actually, at the beginning of each checklist cycle, we do kind of an educational presentation to the committee to we call it the checklist tutorial or the primer. So we get you up to speed on what you're supposed to be looking at in your review. I'm going to stop talking and let you see an actual checklist presentation. If you haven't had a chance to review what's in your packet, we only include certain excerpts from the full checklist in your packet, just to save paper. There still are some paper packets that go out, but we do include the full submittal from the cities in the link that's in the agenda. So if you're just looking at what's in the packet, you're not seeing the full checklist. You're seeing a summary and kind of the highlights. But that's mostly probably what will be discussed by the cities tonight. And then after the cities make their short presentation, the committee members are free to ask questions about what was in the checklist, or even items that are outside of the checklist that kind of pertain to transportation, housing, and land use. So like I said, I'll stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to City of Antioch, who's going to be presenting their checklist and reporting on the calendar years 2020 and 2021. We're always about a year and a half behind the actual reporting period.
Excuse me, can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Member Wayne?
So you mail out packets? Because I've never got one.
No, we email. Generally, the default is to email a packet. There may be one or two members who historically received paper packets, and they still do, but we prefer to keep everything electronic possible.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's only one member actually receiving a paper packet. So yeah, everything should be in your email inbox. But I'm going to turn it over to City of Antioch staff. We have Kevin Scudero from the planning side and Scott Bunting from the public works side. And I'll start with Kevin because he emailed the checklist to me.
Yes. Yes. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present our checklist before you tonight. We do have a brief presentation. I'm going to go ahead and pull that up and share my screen. We're going to start off with Scott Bunting, our acting public works director. He's going to touch on some of the infrastructure improvements throughout the city, and then I'll provide an update on some interesting housing stuff we have going on, as well as some projects that have been completed. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, and I'll turn it over to Scott.
Thanks, Kevin. As Kevin said, my name is Scott Bunting. I'm the current acting public works director at the City of Antioch. I'd like to get things started talking about a number of projects that we've done.
Sorry.
Are you okay, Kevin?
Yeah, I was getting a little wonky on me there. Sorry about that.
Okay, go ahead. The first slide.
F5 is always the answer.
F5 is the answer.
Are you able to see the slide? My shared screen?
We see the next slides in the left.
Sorry about that.
We're seeing sort of the presenter's screen. That looks good, right? Or
Well, get to the other where it's just displaying the slide.
Sorry about that. It's showing, sorry, I have two monitors working here and it's showing one thing on one and one on the other. My apologies.
I would do the swap.
Under display settings, swap a presenter and there you go. Under there. Swap. There you
Is
go.
that it?
Member Miller is our IT guy.
I appreciate that.
No,
That
no,
work?
no, I'm not that good.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So one of the projects that we do, we have a pavement surface treatment project. This project typically consists of a number of different types of work that we do. We'll mill out areas to do just some overlay work on them. Typically, we're doing combination of microsurfacing and chip seals to try to preserve our roads as best we can. This is an ongoing project. Typically, maybe 100,000 yards worth of work per activity. Next slide, Kevin. Along with those projects come along the pedestrian ADA improvements. So anytime we're doing the road work, we're installing ADA accessible curb ramps, as well as improvements to sidewalks and other walkways. Next. One of a good project that the city is getting ready to start is our L Street Improvement Project. This will increase transit activity into our downtown area. The project moves from on L Street between Highway 4 to the Marina. It's currently broken down into two different segments. The first segment does the northern and southern portions of the roads from Sycamore down to the freeway, and then from the Marina to West 10th Street. And then the second phase in between passes our fairgrounds and the Antioch High School. The first phase of work is expected to get under construction next year. And then the second phase, probably 2 or 3 years following. Traffic calming, the program that we have is relatively new. It is the installation of speed bumps as well as raised crosswalks, signage and striping, other sort of activities that we can do to try to slow down people, typically in our residential areas. We've only gone through 2 cycles worth of the installation of the speed bumps. So far, they've been well received where they've been installed. Another project is our median island improvements. We have a number of areas within the city that the medians were never improved. So this project allows us to install new landscaping, hardscape, beautification within the city. Some of these are in the older area towns, and it was kind of amazing that they hadn't been landscaped. But this is a project that I'm pretty proud of. It does do some beautification from some areas that need it within the town. Next. Last project I'll talk a little bit about is our desalination plant. Project that we've been working on for the last couple of years. Going to be finishing up early next year. This project will take 8 million gallons worth of brackish water from the river, convert it into 6 million gallons worth of drinking water. When that is the case, as we all know, as the river gets a little bit saltier, our quality of drinking, our quality of water that passes our intake has decreased. This project will allow us to utilize our still pre-1914 adjudicated water rights and still benefit our city. This project does consist of a lot of different aspects to it. We were able to replace our water intake, install 2 new state-of-the-art fish screens out there, install a new intake into our water treatment plant directly from the river, as well as about 4 miles worth of pipeline that takes the brine from the plant to Delta Diablo, where it's discharged. Another good portion of our good aspect of this project was we were able to partner with Delta Diablo, a local wastewater treatment plant. We utilized their outfall. We were able to utilize or get in on their MPDS permit when we were doing our work. It just so happened that they needed to update their permit. So utilizing that relationship made it much easier for us to kind of work out that aspect of the project. But a good project, like I say, going to be finishing up. Will be coming online next year. And Kevin?
Yeah, so I'll take over here to talk about some of our planning projects. This is a pretty significant project in the city of Antioch that was under construction throughout the reporting period. It's the AmCal Affordable Apartment Project. It's a 394 unit deed restricted affordable housing project, which I believe is the largest affordable housing project in East Contra Costa County. It's a really great project that I think started the process before the reporting period, was under construction during it, and received certificate of occupancy in 2022. And then another thing with the city of Antioch, we actually have an approved certified housing element. We were certified by HCD on October 12th, 2023, which was a pretty big accomplishment for us. We rezoned to accommodate for over 3,000 units to meet our RHNA numbers as part of that process. We're also going to work on implementation of that. One of the most significant goals in that element is to bring forward an inclusionary housing ordinance for consideration by our city council. We've also had a couple other local housing initiatives in the last few years that I think have been pretty unique, and it's shown Antioch's commitment to creative housing solutions. One is in 2021, we adopted a commercial infill housing overlay district, which allows by right redevelopment of underutilized mixed use and commercial properties in the city of Antioch. And we also just recently adopted an innovative housing overlay district, which allowed the construction of ADU communities, cottage communities on faith-owned land. And that concludes our brief presentation on what's going on in the city of Antioch. Again, we appreciate the committee's time, and we are available to answer any questions you might have about what's going on in Antioch. I will stop sharing my screen.
Excellent. Thank you, Matt, for that lengthier introduction of the process, and to both Kevin and Scott from Antioch. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? There are. I see 3, and I assume they've come in at the same order that I'm seeing them on the screen. If the case, then I'm good. And that first hand up would be Kent.
Thanks. I just had a question about, I'm always interested in traffic calming because that seems like something that every city is struggling with. And Antioch is installing some speed humps. And I was just wondering how that happens in your city. Does that happen from the residents? Are they asking for speed humps in specific areas, or does that come from a local road safety plan, or how does the city go about deciding where to implement those traffic calming measures?
It happens in a couple different ways. The majority of the speed bumps that are happening in residential areas are generated by the public. They're able to request a speed bump in their location. We then ballot the area. We ask the residents if they're in favor of speed bumps, if they're in favor of speed bumps in front of their house. And then those ballots then are looked at as well as all of the other requirements or that we would see the need for those sort of amenities to be placed. And then it goes through the process, and basically it's a balloting. And if it can get through the residents and they all accept it, then that's how they're installed. If we're kind of led to go into a certain area and look at that in terms of how can we, as a capital project, that can be in a different fashion where then it's just a traffic engineering decision of where we might want to install these. But for the most part, these speed bumps are going to be public driven. It's going to be the resident requesting them and the neighborhood accepting them, and then we installing them.
Great, thanks.
And next, I think, is Mr. Miller from Clayton.
Yes, thank you very much. And my question is very brief. You mentioned a phrase that I had not heard before. It's sort of a planning and development concept of by right. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that will entail. And by the way, congratulations on getting approved by HCD. That is not a small accomplishment.
No, it was definitely a long effort, and we are definitely appreciative of that approval. Yeah, so by right, so what we did, I think I may mention that in a reference to our commercial infill housing. So what this city of Antioch had is we had SB2 grant money that could be used towards furthering the production of housing in our city. And so we took a kind of unique approach where we have areas of Antioch that are oversaturated with commercial properties, the economic realities of these large commercial centers have changed. So we identified, I want to say it was around like 8 to 10 sites throughout the city where we developed and adopted objective design standards for this redevelopment. We set forth redevelopment standards. We did the upfront environmental work and basically adopted a by right ministerial approval process for these developments. So basically, if someone wants to do a redevelopment at these sites, we would, it's really just a ministerial planning review where you're submitting your plans to the planning division and we are reviewing against the objective design standards. And then you're moving on to the building permit stage. You don't have to go before a planning commission or city council to obtain any kind of discretionary use permit approvals. So yeah, and we're really starting to see a lot of interest in these sites now. So we haven't had one build yet, but we've had a lot of pre-meetings and we're hoping to get some of them redeveloped soon.
Are these mostly like older strip malls or something along those lines?
It's a mix. In some instances, they're older strip malls. In other instances, they are, let's say, a larger planned development area that maybe was going to be built out in phases and only one phase has been built and the other phase has sat as dirt for 20 years. So it's kind of a mix there.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your answer.
Excellent. Can you guys hear me now? I'm
Yes.
poorly trying to switch to another computer in real time, and I think I'm failing miserably. Ed, I need your help.
No, you pulled it off.
I still exist in two different spaces on this meeting. So anyway, bear with me. But I think next hand up is Ms. Esquivel's. Turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Carr. So I'm Rosa Esquivel, and thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it, but I'm very interested in the desalination plant. That's the first time I heard of a desalination plant in the East Bay. So is that the only one? I have a bunch of questions. I'm really interested in how much, so the one question would be, what percentage of the water supply does that cover for Antioch? And is that the only desalination plant we have in the East Bay?
In terms of surface water, desal, yes. There are other areas that do desalination on groundwater. But in terms of surface desalination, I believe it's the only one in the area. And the water, so it depends. The amount of water that the city takes has been decreasing throughout the years. 6 MGD won't cover all of it. We do have the capability. So our water treatment plant was built in phases. So we have actually two separate plants. They run in parallel, but they're separate. So this part of this project that made it affordable was we utilized one of the plants to do all of the conventional treatment. And then we're just putting on the RO system and converting some piping so that then that can provide the tertiary treatment, but utilize our main plant. So we didn't have to build a whole new plant. The main treatment aspects are already in place. So when that portion of the plant's being utilized, the other plant is able to still process water. We can still take water from CCWD. We have access to the canal. And then our reservoir, which is also filled up with the canal when the river is not necessarily able to be utilized. And then so we'll be able to mix that. It will be new. So really, like I said, this isn't online. It's been under construction for a couple of years. So it's going to take us a little while to adjust and to see. A lot of it's going to be based on, what are the conditions in the river for us. We will definitely be, we will be not utilizing, the RO system itself is great, but, it does restrict the amount of water that we would be able to treat. So we'll see, but there is options. The city of Antioch does have a number of options. We do have also a connection to the multi-purpose pipeline, the treated water from Contra Costa Water District. So it's something that we're pretty diversified in terms of how we can treat or provide our citizens.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's all I had.
Excellent. Great questions. Next up, Chris, it's over to you.
Thanks, Michael. So I actually, some of those questions were questions I had as well, but to kind of follow on to that, I mean, obviously water quality has been declining. How is water affecting the ability for Antioch to grow? You guys have grown a ton over the last 20 years. I mean, how constrained are you from water, or is that not a constraint going forward?
Not so much a constraint going forward. Our plant was built out when water usage was much higher. The main thing with the desalination plant is, there's a number of aspects to it. The preservation of our water rights is important to make us as drought resistant as we can be. And we're really utilizing a source of water that's untapped. I mean, this is just water that's in the river that's brackish, that it's not going to be utilized for anything else. In fact, in most cases, people, of course, want this to be flushed out into the sea. So all in all, anyway, that's
okay. And then one last kind of question. So if you have a desalination plant that's taking water straight from the ocean, is it pretty much the same process and the costs are the same, even though you've got not as much salt, or is this a much cheaper process than a full, ocean desalination plant?
Sure, much cheaper, much cheaper. The cost of the desal comes in electricity. It takes a lot of power to push the water through the membranes. The more membranes are necessary, the more salt there is in the water. So you figure the saltier the water, the more energy it's necessary to push them through the membranes to remove the solids from the water, and therefore your operation costs are going to go up. And your cost of your units would also go up also because of the type and probably number of cylinders that you need.
Great, thank you. It's very, like Rosa said, I never heard of it, and I think it's interesting. So congratulations for being first.
And don't see any further hands up or anyone waving on their cameras. And you can see me now. Older can be better. My old PC and camera get along. My new PC and camera were not getting along at all. But last chance for any comments from the committee. I'd have to agree, the whole desalination was a fascinating topic that I could probably spend a lot of time asking questions about, but probably would get outside the scope of what we want to cover here under transportation issues. But pulling off an MPDES permit is quite a feat. So I'm very, very impressed that you accomplished that. Emily, any written public comments on this agenda item?
We have not received any written public comments.
And I don't think anyone from the public is on, so I think that allows us to go to a motion to approve the City of Antioch's calendar years 2020 and 21 growth management program compliance checklist. So anyone out there willing to put a motion for that?
I move that we accept it as presented.
Thank you, Ed. Do we have a second?
Member Esquivel seconds it.
Thank you, Rosa. Emily, consistent with that, please conduct a roll call vote.
Member Chahal?
Yes.
Member Esquivel?
Yes, yes.
Member Esogo?
Esosego, no worries. Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Moriarty?
Approve?
Member Patel?
Yes.
Member Saunders?
Approved.
Member Shakirin,
Yes.
Member Stark,
Yes.
Member Wayne,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Carr.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Bankett, Bristow, Hammond, and Ash absent.
Thank you all very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate your presentation. Moving on, next action again will be introduced by Matt, and it's the presentation of the City of Martinez staff. Their review of the 2020 and 21 Growth Management Program compliance checklist for their city. So over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Carr. No lengthy introduction this time. I'll turn it over to the city staff. The folks representing the city of Martinez tonight, this is their first checklist for the city, so you may want to go a little easy on them, but I think they'll probably put together a pretty complete presentation for you, because their checklist was complete and had some very interesting things in it. So I think we'll get a good presentation from the city tonight. But I'll stop talking. I'll turn it over to Michael Cass, who's the planning manager for the city, and has folks, I think, from planning and engineering, public works to help him out. So Michael.
Thank you, Matt. And I want to actually turn it over to Daniel Gordon. Daniel is one of our associate planners who has been taking the lead on this project, and he will be presenting this evening. But also we have Ali Hatefi, who is our assistant city engineer, who is also present tonight to answer any questions. And to provide a little bit of clarification, what Matt was alluded to is the staff that worked on this checklist is all new and was not actually staff at the time that this checklist is covering. So I just wanted to make that clarification.
We'll be gentle.
Okay, let me just get this going. Can everyone see my screen? Okay, great. So thanks for having us tonight. We're really excited to be here and present our Measure J compliance report for the city of Martinez. I'm Dan Gordon. I'm an associate planner with the city, and as has been mentioned, I'm fairly new, but excited to be here representing the city tonight. So a little background. City of Martinez, we're not the biggest jurisdiction in Contra Costa County, and we're eligible for approximately $750,000 in Measure J funds for FY 21-22 and a similar yet to be determined amount for 22-23. And the city did complete multiple activities in the reporting period to satisfy the Measure J requirements. Specifically, I'll just dive into the action plan component. So the city worked closely with multiple partners from around the Bay and the state to implement actions from the current action plan. Among these, we're working with MTC and the Bay Area Trails Collaborative on the Bay Area, on the Bay Trail completion. We have a couple miles in Martinez that are unconnected, so we're working on making those connections. We completed a downtown parking study to assess capacity. So this was a comprehensive study done by Nelson Nygaard for our entire downtown area to see how we can better manage the capacity that we have and to increase that capacity. We also acquired open space for a future trail network. So this is the Alhambra Hills area in southern Martinez, and it's fairly extensive. We maintained our existing transportation system using capital improvement funding. And we have a new general plan that supports increased density around our Amtrak station. As many of you may know, we have, I think it's the only Amtrak station in Contra Costa County. We're very proud of it. And we're very proud of the fact that this new general plan supports a greater development around that station. We are also worked on an intersection redesign of Pacheco Boulevard and Arnold Drive. So these are two really important large arterials within the city. There's been some issues with that. So this was a really much needed redesign. We also worked on a comprehensive update to our general plan, which was ultimately adopted in November 2022, which was a big milestone for the city since the previous general plan that we were working with was from 1973. During the reporting period, we had two large projects which were conditioned to have elements that are consistent with the action plan. The first one is Portside Lofts. So this is in our downtown area. It's a 13-unit residential project that also has offices as well as ground floor retail. And they were conditioned to provide upgraded accessibility ramps, street lighting, and bicycle parking. The second project was the Amare Apartments project on Arnold Drive. This is a 183-unit residential project, and they were conditioned to provide a comprehensive transportation demand management program for the development, as well as the street lighting and a crosswalk with a rectangular rapid flashing beacon system to cross Arnold Drive, which is a really high capacity street. In terms of our development mitigation program, the city does have a comprehensive set of impact fees that we impose on new developments that require the developer to pay an appropriate sum to mitigate the impact of the development. And for our 5-year capital improvement program, the city continues to maintain that. And as Michael mentioned, we do have our assistant city engineer, Ali Hatefi, here if you have any questions about that capital improvement program. In terms of addressing housing options, in 2020, the city saw the construction of 18 units in the following breakdown. And in 2021, we saw a great increase, which was 65 units, again, with the following breakdown of still working on those very low, and moderately priced units. For traffic impact studies, we did complete 2 traffic impact studies during the reporting period. One was for the previously mentioned Amare apartment development for the 183-unit apartment building, and the other one was for an 82-unit assisted living facility called Brookside Assisted Living. And then getting to maintenance of effort. So maintenance of effort, for those who are new on the Citizens Advisory Committee, this is the requirement that a jurisdiction spends a certain amount of money in order to be eligible for Measure J funding. So, and it's specifically funding for street and road projects. And so in 2019 to 2020, the city invested $4.6 million in street and road projects, and in FY 2021, that was a little over $3 million. And so we did meet those requirements for maintenance of effort. And that is the end of our brief high-level presentation. And if you've got any questions, we will be happy to answer them.
Super. Thanks, Matt, Michael, Daniel, and Ali. And true to form, already got 4 folks lined up with questions or comments, and I'll take them in the order I see them, and that would be starting with you, Ed.
Thank you very much. Yes, and again, just brief question. The Amare Apartments, I saw some very complex language, which probably Ms. Patel understood because she's got years working with this, but it looked, there was some sort of, the development was conditioned upon something, and I wasn't sure if it was, I mean, it was some sort of control, but I didn't know if it was just a street light or what, a stoplight or what it was.
Are you referring to the Transportation Demand Management Program?
Yes.
Yes. So a Transportation Demand Management Program is something that is internal to a development, that the developer would work with the residents and future residents of that development on things like commuting or, you know, vouchers for public transportation. It's just a way of reducing vehicular demand at the development. And so that's what that program does.
All right. I'd not seen that terminology before. So now that does make sense. I thought perhaps it was inflated speak for something as simple as, oh, we're making them pay for a stoplight outside of that. And by the way, I wish you luck on those the numbers for the below market and stuff. I'm thinking that HCD is going to put a lot more upward pressure on communities in the next 4 to 5 years into the RHNA cycle to see those numbers go up. All right, thanks very much for your time, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ed. Chris, I think you're up next.
Yeah. So just sort of following on that kind of the low income comment that Ed made. I mean, you guys weren't there, but I am interested in kind of maybe what the city's overall philosophy is doing and where it's trying to go with those numbers. We've certainly seen a number of these presentations, or at least I have, over the last year, and I'd say very few of them had big zeros all the way through like that. So just, I mean, I don't want to pick on you, and if you can't answer it, then that's okay. But I'm sort of interested in the philosophy maybe that was there, and maybe how that's changing, if there is change, and the ADUs figure into this at all, or, you know, how are you addressing the issues going forward?
Definitely. I can definitely speak to the, current staff and future direction. Our current staff, which the entire planning department is new within the last year, we are extremely supportive of affordable housing. And we actually recently brought to city council and got approved new ADU regulations that are going to make it much easier to construct an ADU in Martinez. And we've actually already seen our best year ever for ADU construction. We've had over 40 ADUs constructed, or at least permitted this year alone, which blows every other year out of the water. In terms of our housing element and future policies to support affordable housing, I will turn that over to our planning manager, Michael Cass, who can speak to that.
Yeah, so I can speak and add a little bit to what Dan indicated. So housing element, unlike other jurisdictions, is not certified yet. It's actually scheduled to be adopted next week by our city council. And there's a number of policies that we're working on concurrent with the adoption of our housing element. A notable one is we are creating a community services overlay district, which basically for nonprofits and religious owned properties, they are allowed increased density. And we've had considerable interest in this overlay district. We're actually already working with 2 religious institutions to have projects going forward. One is anticipated to submit in the coming months, and we've already seen preliminary plans of 61 units, 60 of which will be affordable. So we definitely see headed in the right direction from that standpoint. Additionally, Dan, during his presentation, had spoke to some recent projects that were entitled, including the Amari project. That project has 9 affordable units associated with it. Additionally, tomorrow, our zoning administrator will be considering an application to make modifications to one of our existing affordable projects, which would be adding 9 additional affordable units. So as of tomorrow, that will be approved. So there's definitely upward trend that the city is seeing as a whole, not only from an affordability standpoint, but also total number of units that we're seeing. The last point that I'd kind of like to make, Dan had alluded to an upward trend that we saw in the 2 years that this was covering. We actually, what we've already looked at for preliminary numbers for the current year, it's actually higher than any other year in the entire last 8-year cycle. So again, we definitely are seeing growth and more interest in development in our community, particularly at a time when lending and construction costs are at an all-time high. So I think that's indicative of some really promising things are happening in Martinez.
Okay, thank you. Obviously, a big difference a year and a half later from this report. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. And quite a few hands up. Next in line, Kent, over to you.
Yeah, just a couple of things. You mentioned Alhambra Hills open space with a trail network. I just wanted to say congratulations on that. That's a big deal. It's exciting to see that going on in the city. And then the other thing, I'm just reading this off the action plans section of the checklist. It says, supported the complete streets, including improvement of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. General plan identified widening of Alhambra Avenue for sidewalk and bike lanes. So I couldn't really tell if that's something that's done or ongoing or planned for the future. But I know whenever a city tries to do that, you either have to give up a travel lane or you have to give up parking, and that always results in a lot of pushback. And so I was just wondering how is Martinez navigating that?
That's a great question, and I will hand that one over to our Assistant City Engineer, Ali Hatefi.
Good evening, and that is a great question in regards to Alhambra Avenue. On the section of the general plan that has been identified for widening, and it's currently identified as one of our unfunded projects in the city as part of our the outlook of our overall capital improvement program. I know. I'm also, as Mike and Daniel mentioned, also new to the city, but I understand that there have been cities performed in the past to look at potential improvements in widening of Alhambra Avenue to accommodate bike lanes and sidewalks. There are sections of Alhambra Avenue south of Highway 4 that is already 4 lanes or 2 lanes in each direction with sidewalks constructed in both sides, but there are gaps that we're aware of that needs to be fulfilled. That being said, it is one of our priorities, especially with a school in the area, and the city is also in the short term will be implementing kind of a analysis and develop kind of a planning guideline and document on how to address gaps in our pedestrian and bicycle network, especially to the vulnerable road users by schools and transit facilities.
Great, thanks. I appreciate that.
Super. And next in the line is Keith.
Thanks. Yeah, congratulations on finally getting that general plan done. I know that was quite a task. Yeah, I have a couple questions. I guess one on pedestrian and also bicycle. What's your I noticed that on Shell, I guess it's D Street that turns into Shell Avenue. You put in some new sidewalks there. I think that was part of the safety to school program. I might be mispronouncing that, but I noticed that the sidewalks were sloped, and I was curious why that was, rather than have more of a sharp edge. I think that'd be safer for pedestrians. I was wondering what your policy on when you do the sidewalks.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I could go back again to where I was not around when the project was constructed, but when it comes to sidewalks, we do have our city standards that we abide by when we construct new sidewalks along our streets. And I believe the standards we have either calls for like a sloped sidewalk with a rolling curb and gutter, or your sidewalk with the standard curb and gutter. But we are also looking to update our standards to have something that's ultimately safer for the pedestrians in the area.
Because I noticed on that one particularly it's also one of the main routes that the kids go to the Alhambra High School, and since it's sloped, there are people, and it's also no parking on that street. I mean, I don't know if you can park there, but it's a very busy route, as you may know. Mm-hmm. And so, residents end up parking on the sidewalk, which then pedestrians are walking on the street there. So something I noticed you might want to check out. Also, what goes in? I was looking at your class 3 bicycle through Martinez. What's your thinking on expanding that? I know one area, as you know, the Benicia Martinez Bridge there, with a lot of people use that, bicyclists, and I noticed you have the path that goes to downtown, but a lot of people cut through to go to Shell Avenue, especially Martinez residents. Have you thought about making that Shell Avenue through the refinery? It's not the most beautiful place to ride, but it's actually very convenient. And is there any talk about making that a class 3, or what's the process to take a road like that? What kind of process do you look at to consider a class 3 bicycle lane through Martinez?
So that's a good question. So when we look at considerations for the bike lane, obviously we would have to look at our the circulation traffic element of our general plan. And then I know, I believe it's either the county or CCTA also developed a countywide bikeway network that we could also look at as well when we do develop or when we do implement bicycle facilities in our streets. Part of the challenge too is I believe parts of Shell Avenue does kind of cut through unincorporated Martinez, which would fall under the jurisdiction of Contra Costa County. So we would obviously have to work with them. And the same goes whenever we build bikeway networks that do connect to other cities such as Pleasant Hill, just making sure that the network we put in makes sense. And then also look at other networks outside of our city limits, such as the Canal Trail, to see if that is one where if there's a way we could provide connection to that network as well, if it makes sense, as we implement our bike facilities throughout the city. And of course, I mean, when it comes to bike facilities, you also have to take into consideration the existing use of the roadway, what the speed limits are, and the amount of traffic, because depending on the bike facility you construct, it may not be comfortable enough for a lot of bike users to utilize.
Okay, my last question for public transit. You know, the nearest BART station for Martinez actually is about 8 miles, the North Concord Martinez BART station, they call it. Has there been ever any talk, or have you guys looked into changing the Capital Corridor is now considered, I think it's called long rail travel. It's not a commuter. If they change the designation to commuter travel, actually it'll make it more accessible to local Martinez people, and the fares will drop. Have you guys ever looked into that?
I could answer that. Currently, we have not. We understand, in the city right now, when there's the only connectivity we have in the city is through local transit, is through the CCCTA bus network. Through our bus stops, you get to the BART stations, whether it's in the North Concord Martinez or a couple other BART stations such as Concord or Pleasant Hill BART, as well as utilizing the bus service to get to the Amtrak station.
All right, yeah, I was just thinking that I'm not sure how that designation works, but yeah, it would be something that might be the city of Martinez might try to put some pressure on Caltrans, or to make that a commuter rail, which would lower the fees. And actually it's a pretty good way for people Martinez. You can take the train to Richmond and get off there. It's about a 20-minute ride, and then you can connect to the Richmond BART. But unfortunately, the average ticket's like $25, so it doesn't make sense to do it. To do it every day would be too expensive for the average person. But thank you. That's all I have.
Member Wayne, we are planning to have Capital Corridor staff come in and provide a presentation at some point next year. So that's definitely something we could ask them when they're here.
All right, appreciate that. Just putting the word out, just something I thought about. Thanks.
Yeah, Member Wayne, don't lose that one. That's a great question. I think warrants some discussion. That the folks in Martinez are looking at the Amtrak station as an opportunity. It's right by the county seat, the courts, all of that activity, everything going on in the rejuvenation of that downtown. I think it's prime for build out, very attractive build out near waterfront, milder climate than a lot of us in the East Bay have. So, enabling that connection to BART and the network could be a real game changer. I see we still have two more. Dennis, I think you're up next.
Great, thank you. I think I think it would be a great question. So I took a quick look at exhibit K and M, PDF page 142, 144 respectively. And I was just wondering if you could briefly walk me through this. I asked because the interest earned is pretty much the same for fiscal year 2019 and 22 and fiscal year 20 and 21. So trying to understand some of the numbers behind that.
Ali, I don't know if you have any information about the interest earned portion. I am not familiar with it. But if you could shed some light on it, we'd appreciate it. But of course, understanding that none of us were here when those numbers were created.
No, understood. And this was you know, unfortunately, I don't have access to our financial system right now, but this is just something that was recorded in our financial system. I could, definitely get back to you guys on that number once I get the information.
Sure. Thank you.
And we didn't see interest rates climb skyward really until late 22, early 23. So that may be consistent.
Number may go up in their next presentation. Excellent. Looks like I see one more hand. Sheena, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just building off of Member Miller's question. The very beginning of this was on transportation demand management at the development, the apartment development. I was just curious, how do you go about monitoring the effectiveness of that transportation demand management over time, or is that something you do?
Yeah, so Michael, I don't know if you have any more information on this, but I know we would be using traffic studies as well as self-reported numbers of people involved in the program, expenditures, and that sort of thing. We would also do surveys to gauge resident satisfaction with that program and if it was well utilized and if they wanted to see changes to it. So it would be sort of a dynamic process that we could tweak as it went along to better serve the residents.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing that I would add associated with it, so that project had an environmental impact report. And because there is an environmental impact report associated with it, it has a series of requirements for monitoring. I can't speak specifically for what's required for that project at this point in time, but it is explicitly called out of things that we would be looking for to make sure there's compliance.
Thanks for that addition. And I see that Nicholas has raised his hand.
Hey, yes, thanks, Dan and the city of Antioch for your great presentation. You mentioned that there were issues with at the intersection redesign at Pacheco Boulevard and Arnold Drive. Do you mind expanding what those issues were and how you resolved them?
Yeah, certainly. I could take the lead in that. So just a bit of background. So everyone's familiar about the intersection of Pacheco. There was a comprehensive study done that involved both the city of Martinez and Costa County on improvements to be made at Pacheco Boulevard from Blum Road, which is near the Highway 460 junction, over to Marola Avenue. And, that resulted in taking a multi-phase approach to widen Pacheco Boulevard to accommodate vehicles from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, as well as bike lanes and sidewalks. The city's portion of the project is located, pretty much between the county limit lines, which should be the southern portion would be at the Contra Costa Canal Trail, and the northern portion would just be at Sunrise Boulevard. So the entire alignment study was completed in about 2017, and the city's portion was to widen their part of Pacheco Boulevard, and part of the project also includes constructing a traffic signal at the intersection of Arnold. And, a project like that, it's kind of complicated. It requires, along with the design, it requires obtaining right-of-way in order to facilitate the widening of the intersection. And then there are also overhead utilities on both sides of the roadways for communications and electrical PG&E that would require to be relocated to facilitate the widening of the project. In addition, there was also a development project that took place for a new storage facility off of Sunrise Drive, and with the negotiations, we were able to receive contribution from them, but that also obligated us to consider the improvements we were obligated to construct as part of the widening of Pacheco Boulevard. And along with changeover of staff, we've gone through about 4 or 5 city engineers in the past 6 or 7 years. That's kind of led to a delay of the project, but we're at the point right now where we're getting ready for final design and also communicating with utilities. And I believe we only have 1 or 2 more property owners that we need to obtain right away for to get the project finalized for a construction of a new traffic signal as part of the widening work.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Are there, great discussion all. Are there any further comments from any members of the committee? Emily, any written comments on this agenda item?
We have not received any written public comments.
Okay, and still no one from the public at this time. So I think that allows us to move to a motion. And I think our tradition, Keith, would be to let you make that motion as the member from Martinez, if you wish to do so.
Yes, I make the motion.
Excellent. And do we have a second out there?
I'll second that. It's Chris Saunders.
Thank you, Chris. Emily, I think that allows you to conduct a roll call.
Member Chahal?
Yeah.
Member Esquivel?
Yes, accept.
Member Esso Segovia?
Aye.
Member Miller?
Aye.
Member Moriarty?
Approve.
Member Patel?
Approve.
Member Saunders?
Aye.
Member Shakiran?
Aye.
Member Stark?
Yes.
Member Wayne?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Carr?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously with members Banker, Bristow, Hammond, and Ash absent.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you once again to the City of Martinez. Very informative and very well done coming in on a shoestring at the 11th hour. So congratulations to all of you. Next item is informational. So no need for a roll call when it's complete. It is regarding the recent activity of the Department of External Affairs. That's going to be presented by Lindy Johnson, who I think I saw join us. There she is. Welcome, Lindy. Thanks very much. And over to you.
Well, thank you, Vice Chair Carr, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. My name is Lindy Johnson, and I actually just asked Matt if I could have a few moments on your agenda to introduce myself. I'm the new Director of External Affairs here at CCTA, and many of you are probably familiar with Lindsay, which is a little confusing because my name is just her name dropping the S, but she did wonderful work here at CCTA and was here for quite a long time, so she's got a rich history, and so left a lot for me, big shoes to fill and a lot for me to learn from. But I also just wanted to take the opportunity to talk a little bit about what the Director of External Affairs does and some of the things that we handle under that umbrella. There's sort of 3 things I wanted to cover. The first is sort of your basic communications, which I think is something that'll probably reach all of you. At least I certainly hope that it does. That includes like our press releases, all of our social media work, website updates. And I come to all of you hoping that you'll provide me some feedback over time of places where you feel like we can do some improvement or opportunities that might exist for us to communicate with your, respective areas where you live. And or other groups that you might be a part of. So one of the things that falls under that communication umbrella is speaking and going to engagements, whether that's a Rotary Club or a Seroptimus Club or any other group you might be a part of or be familiar with within your community. Please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm going to put my email in the chat at the end of this. I'm realizing I don't know if there is a chat, but I will make sure you all have access. Yeah, Matt's giving me a no. I'm so used to Zoom always having chat. But I'll be sure to make sure that you all get access to my email address. I'd love to hear from any of you if you ever have suggestions of places or ways that we can best engage with communities that you might know of within Contra Costa County. The other thing that kind of falls under external affairs is all of the government relations work. So I get the pleasure of getting to work with our city councils and many of our other elected officials, including our board of supervisors and kind of our state and federal delegation. I come from a policy background, so it's been really a pleasure to think about that in context of CCTA. And then kind of that last thing I want to mention is doing a lot of strategy work and thinking about kind of what we as an organization want to do going forward and how we involve community input in those decisions. I feel like most of you have had the pleasure for many years of probably working with Matt, and Matt has already given me some good ideas, as have the planning department, of how we can do some of that community input and community outreach. But it'll be particularly important as we continue to work on the countywide transportation plan. So I really just wanted to come and introduce myself. Again, my name is Lindy. I'm happy to give you all some background of me and kind of my history and how I came to CCTA, but mostly I wanted to meet all of you and let you know that I'm open to ideas, and I'd love to hear from all of you about ways in which you either really prefer to be outreach to, if there's something you feel like has been really effective, or that you've seen another organization do and you're like, hey, that really spoke to me, send it to me. I love to have thought partners, and it's always kind of fun to see what spoke to folks. I had someone the other day send me a great advertisement that LA Metro is doing that is literally just fast pictures of trains, and it says trains, trains, trains. You asked for it, we brought them. Trains, trains, trains. But it caught our attention, right? So marketing and communications is sort of an interesting field in that there's definitely a lot of experimentation. And if anything catches your eye, I hope that you'll share it with me, particularly if it's something in the transportation or active transportation space. I also just wanted to make sure that you felt comfortable kind of bringing those ideas forward to me and that I put a face to the name. So thank you for doing this work. It really means quite a lot to the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. I know that there's been a lot of times in my work that I couldn't have done my work without a group like this and the advising that you all provide. So I just wanted to say thank you and introduce myself. Thank you for making time for me tonight.
Thank you for thinking of us, Lindy. Comments, questions from the committee? I see Chris's hand is up.
Hi, Lindy. Nice to meet you. I represent Moraga. So I don't know that I, in my everyday life, see too many things coming out from CCTA, but I think, CCTA is coordinating a lot of activities, and the different cities that are involved are probably, well, they are doing very, very similar things and publicizing it under, their own banner or whatever. Do you guys help the cities coordinate that kind of language, graphics, those kinds of things? Some cities are big, some are small. Is that something you do or not?
So first of all, I think you bring up a really great point, and I appreciate you doing so, which is that CCTA has its hands in a lot of things that happen throughout Contra Costa County, right? And I think sometimes there's attention on that, and other times maybe it's a little bit more behind the scenes. I want to be cautious in how I answer your second question because I want to be ensure that I've properly understood it. Are you asking, do we provide or ask cities to do certain things to communicate that CCTA is involved? Or are you asking whether or not we are involved?
No, it's not whether or not you're involved. I think it's more about helping them probably give consistent messages. You've got small departments that maybe don't have a PR person, or they've got a 1/8 PR person. And so I would think there's a lot of synergies and economies of scale if we've all got Vision Zero plans and we've all got back to school safe things. It seems like that would be something that the whole city, all the cities can benefit from each other and what you're doing. And I don't know how coordinated it is or isn't.
It's a great point. And certainly, I think in the few months that I've been here, a conversation that I've been noticing has come up a lot, which is really helpful for me as I think about the direction that I want to take the department that I oversee. I do think that hopefully you'll see from me some interest in thinking about how we bring more cohesion to exactly that thing, right? And perhaps even kind of working and getting to know some of those public information officers. I will say I've noticed CCTA is pretty great about when they do a project in a city, making sure to incorporate quotes in a press release and doing some stakeholder engagement within that space. But I do think there's more for us to do in how we talk about and make sure that CCTA is talked about through some of those city channels. And I know some of that's just relationship building, but I also think that your point is well taken, that there's definitely some opportunities for growth in that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Over to you, Ed.
Yes, and I'll be brief. One thing, by the way, I didn't realize you're going to have another doppelganger. That's not really the right word here, but there's a Lindy Johnson who's a policy director over at the East Bay Leadership Council. So just to,
Oh, no, that's me.
Oh, that is you. All right. So there we go.
I
All
came
right.
from the East Bay Leadership
So you're
Council.
also in the East Bay Leadership Council. That's fantastic. I think I saw you at the DVTI
Yes,
presentation. Very good, Ben.
absolutely. It's
All right.
I feel very flattered that you knew that I came from there. Yes. So
Oh,
previously
yeah.
I was with the East Bay Leadership Council, and DVTI is a great organization that I hope
It
that
is.
will
I
continue.
would love to see us turn into the next Tri-Valley with hundreds of thousands of jobs just popping all over this area. But I guess one of the last thing I wanted to throw in there is it'll be a marginal adjustment. I mean, you've already taken the lay of the land and seen kind of how things have been handled in the past. I've seen CCTA directors and former directors show up at city councils to kind of talk to them, and they probably feel like they were getting a pretty big glad hand from that. So there may be a small adjustment in hearing from someone other than the big kahuna, and I'm sure that there will still be some interactions at higher levels. But I definitely wish you good luck in greasing those relationships.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that I get to encounter many of you at community events as I kind of build those relationships.
Excellent. And more than a doppelganger, one and the same. Thanks, Ed. Rosa, it looks like you might be tobogganing, but I think
It does look chilly there, Rosa.
Chile and El Cerrito. So, Lindy, I'm formally inviting you to the El Cerrito for Independence. What do we call it? A festival in the park. CCTA is invited to have a table in El Cerrito for Independence Day. I think thank you for making the presentation. I think your job's important. Just as a citizen, my only comment would be I actually didn't know what the CCTA did and how it benefited the community, especially as a taxpayer or person that's involved. And I just wish a lot more people around my community would be more civically minded. So maybe your goal of spreading the word and what is the benefit of the CCTA, especially when people are asked to like raise some bonds and stuff like that. So you're definitely invited to our community, and anything we can do to help just to spread the word of what is the CCTA and how does it benefit the community. I don't have any ideas other than social media, but let's just do the old fashioned way of doing, festivals in the cities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we'll have to get everyone here in a CCTA t-shirt. We'll just get the brand out there all the time. But no, I would love that. Our summer event series, was really new for us, but successful for us this year. And I know that Emily and I have already started talking about what that's going to look like next year. And certainly one of the things that's come into that is like parades. And so not that that's a parade, but just recognizing Independence Day can be a good opportunity for some of that. So we're definitely going to be thinking about that. And my hope is that in coordination with Matt, and I keep going like this because Matt's little bubble is right next to me on my screen, to think a little bit about how we might come back to you for some feedback about some outreach materials before we bring them out to the general public, so that we can maybe use some of your expertise and thoughts, particularly coming as citizens who maybe didn't know a lot about CCTA. You could use that lens to help us kind of craft some of our materials. I think this would be a really great group to engage if you all would be up to that.
Excellent. I don't see any hands raised at the moment. One pregnant pause before I ask one question. I like Chris's question where he said how you sort of looking down across the whole of Contra Costa County and coordinating. The other direction is up. You know, you got the MTA doing things, and we're part of a larger ecosystem. How does your role work with MTA and any common messaging or managing a different message? Because there may be some messages that are great for the city that just don't work, you know, in some of the towns that we represent.
Yeah, so prior to working for the East Bay Leadership Council, which, you know, is an East Bay organization, I worked for Contra Costa County. And so I've been fortunate to have a lot of experience thinking about and talking to folks about the ways in which Contra Costa County is very unique. We're kind of a microcosm for California, but we also have a lot of different opinions in our county, right? And what works for one city or town doesn't work for another city or town. And at the same time, we need some countywide cohesion, but we also want to respect local control. I mean, these are conversations that you hear a lot in our county, right? And I think that's a really great thing because I appreciate that it means we have dialogue and discussion, and right, this isn't really an echo chamber sort of county. So at the same time, MTC is a great partner in many ways, but I also think that there is certainly times in which we might see something slightly differently than they do. A lot of my job is getting to build relationships there. I am already on about 3 or 4 different committees with MTC folks, and actually had a meeting with them this morning. So certainly I think that building a relationship with them and being able to provide voice to CCTA's kind of agreed upon and decided upon policies and priorities will certainly be a big part of this job. And I think that should there be an opportunity to do so, I'll do my best to engage this group as we kind of shape some of that. Certainly as it relates to, for example, the regional transportation measure that they're exploring right now, for example.
Yeah, that's important. Great. Emily, have we received any written public comments on this information item?
We have not received any written public comments.
Very good. And no members from the public are online at this time. So that would conclude in good time our regular agenda items. Next, we move on to member and staff comments. So does any member or staff have anything they would like to share? And I see Ed's hand is up.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you very much. But there was something that I read this weekend in the newspaper that hit me particularly, or maybe it was the weekend prior. Sure, it was in the East Bay Times. It was about, you know, we always think about high density development being apartments, so to speak, or whatnot. And there was this novel concept that is starting to take hold, which is not apartments and not condominiums, but essentially 2,000, 2,500 square foot homes that are being built multi-level, so that you have 2,500 square feet of an actual house that's then built vertical. There's another level, and this can also be a little bit more side to side, where it could be 2-car garage on the bottom and in kitchen and living room on the second level. This be like a 4-level. The point being here that your typical condominiums or whatnot would be somewhere in the 1,300 square feet and down. And this is more like a way to build single family homes at high density. And the attractiveness of that for developers is more units per, obviously higher density, more units per acre. But it might also be a sort of a solution, I guess, to adding units in what have traditionally been single family home based things, and still having essentially the same kind of family clientele or whatnot. And the other thing I wanted to throw in there is a quick apology that already I'm getting new members confused. I made some reference to Ms. Patel and her extensive work in transportation is actually talked about. Obviously, I should have been referring to Ms. Chakran because Ms. Patel is a civil engineer. So anyway, apologies for the confusion between the two of you there.
No problem. Thank you.
It's minor compared to my faux pas, Ed. Other member or staff comments?
Vice Chair Carr, I sent out the attendance letters in preparation for return to in-person meetings in January. Just wanted to reiterate again, while we're all gathered here, that starting January with our first meeting on the 24th, and we will be back in person in our boardroom at our office in Walnut Creek. You are able to claim a mileage reimbursement for, your travel to and from the meetings. If you would like to do that, as I, stated in the letter, you will need ethics and sexual harassment training. That information was provided. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you're wondering if you're up to date on that training. I can go ahead and work with each of you individually if you have any questions, but just wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, Emily, that's a fairly high cycle refresher requirement, isn't it, on those, on the ethics and sexual harassment training?
Yeah, each training is 2 hours long, and you have to do it every 2 years
in
order to get the reimbursement.
Yeah. And I had, and not all of us are here, and maybe some who could answer this question affirmatively actually aren't here tonight, but how many of us were actually members pre-COVID? I know I was not, and I know a number of the new faces today on the call were not, but how many of us who are here were even ever at a live in-person meeting?
Me and Kent for sure. I'm not sure who
That
else.
was my guesses. You and Kent.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not many. Emily, I'm sure we'll learn as we go. Is the current thinking that if you can't make it in person but could make it online, is that an absence? Is that an excused absence? I know we're trying to set the stage to get folks back in person, and I think that's the right answer. And I think a lot of us are weary of this format. It had its time, it had its need, but I think it's a richer experience if we are face to face. But on the other hand, we've gotten very used to this option, if you will, and sometimes that option is better than not attending at all if that's what predicament you're facing. So I'm just curious if we've thought about that at all with respect to member expectations.
Yeah, so the expectations for the member is to be prepared to be in person. Our board will be voting next week on a hybrid component for the public only.
Okay. Very good. And in terms of member comments, I have one, and this may be something, Matt, you have some familiarity with. I don't know if it was just coincidence or if we all got it. Bay Area Transit Study. I see Ed shaking his head yes.
Yeah, I didn't participate only because I don't telecommute. I mean, I telecommute to work, so it felt like it would be sort of ripping them off for $25 for me to participate. But I did get that survey for yourself and your spouse.
Yeah, no, I did it, and I telecommute when I am working, and they actually want to know that sort of thing. And why are you getting in your car? What are you doing? I think for me, they're going to have logged about 22-mile trips, dropping off an elderly relative at a dementia daycare and, stopping at the grocery on the way back home, that sort of thing. But I was just curious how extensive that was. Was it fairly broadly distributed, or did we somehow get it because we had a nexus to transportation issues? I just was kind of curious what that was about and kind of what the bigger picture was there, if anyone had any insights into that. Looking at you, Matt.
Yeah, I didn't receive it, so I feel like you guys must be the lucky ones, or selected for certain demographics. I'm not sure, but the only thing, do you know where it came from? Was it MTC?
It was Bay Area wide. It was MT. I think I called them MTA, but it was MTC.
It was MTC. Yeah, it was
Okay.
MTC. Yeah.
So they do conduct what they call a travel household survey, and I'm not sure if that's what that was, but that's information that we collect, and usually it's called a travel diary, where people go out and kind of log all their trips, and then that is used to validate the travel models that we use to forecast in the future. We use it to validate current travel patterns and then use that to forecast out into the future. I'm not sure if that's what it was, but that is something that MTC does every few years.
Okay, I think that's what it is, and my survey, 7-day survey period ends today. So
Yeah, that sounds right. A travel diary. Yep.
Yep, and it was all adults in the household, so even our elderly relative who is only driven around, he participates as well. But we help him log in that he was a passenger and was being dropped off, or not able to drive. But they kind of want to know kind of everything that's going on in the household and why you're going from point A to point B. So
yeah, that's good to see elder demand, for mobility purposes, show up in the survey. That's great.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's right. And given his inability to walk very far, he will be driven wherever he needs to go, either by us or by somebody else. So
that information will directly inform our modeling in the future. So that's great.
Okay, super. I'd never seen it before, and I got it, and I thought, oh, this is curious. I'll bite. And yeah, it's not a lot of work for the gift card they give you at the end. To be candid, I don't know if there's a demand side to that, if you can request to be a part of it, or if they are looking for,
that would break the statistical significance.
Exactly,
of the,
unless they
study.
were short of people in a certain area and might need a few more inputs from certain parts of the county, then they may be willing to take you. So anyway, I was just quite intrigued by it all, so I thought I'd throw it out here at our meeting. That was all I had. I would, in asking for apologies, I would ask for an apology with my IT. Hopefully I switched computers without looking too awkward. Don't know why my old external camera didn't work with my new PC, but I'll have to go offline and figure that out. But not for this group, because we'll be face to face at the end of January. So it's a moot point for us. Let's see, where are we on our agenda?
Reports.
Members of the public, correspondence and communication would be next. Anything there?
Chair, this is one of those items that I'll Emily and I will coordinate with Lindy on to make sure we're getting all of the kind of press releases and correspondence into your packet, so you're not having to, not everybody's on social media, so we can include those in the packet. We'll try and make sure we're always getting the most recent press releases in there.
Yeah, very good. I resemble that remark. Any other topics that members would like to have agendized? I always love that word, agendized, for a future meeting.
And once again, Chair Carr, if I may, for the new members, when we're not looking at checklists, we are trying to inform ourselves, you all as members, on transportation and related issues, housing and otherwise. So if there are areas of interest you want to be educated on, and you can make a request to either at the meeting right now or email Emily or myself, and we can try and arrange those types of presentations. And you can look through the future agendums item log in your packet and kind of see what's been requested as of late that we haven't gotten to, and what we have presented to this committee in the past. It's a wide variety of stuff, so feel free to reach out if you have any ideas.
Yeah, that's at the very end of our packet, is it not? Yeah, so that's a good one to skim, kind of, and you'll see some things on it. And in fact, with the turnover on committee and issues getting a bit stale, it's good. There can be things that maybe were presented 3, 4, 5 years ago that are timely to bring back.
Do we submit the agenda request in writing, or can we make it at the end of the meeting?
You can do it right now, or
Yes,
if you
I have
think of
one.
something, in a week from now, email. Yeah.
One suggestion is maybe I work too early for January, but I'd be interested in 2 questions with the upcoming March election. Is it March? I was wondering if there's any transportation specific items that people are voting on, but it's probably Contra Costa wide. I don't know everything that's on the ballot. And then the second question would be, is there anything the CCTA wants to make recommendations in terms of projects for funding? So, maybe it's political, but I guess it affects transportation. Thank you. That's one idea.
Lindy, who was here earlier, does a legislative report. So maybe we can bring in our legislative analyst, have him report on what's going on in Sacramento and otherwise.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Rosa. Any final thoughts on future agenda items at the moment? Otherwise, as Matt says, there's an open invitation to email him any ideas if you don't have any at the moment, but have an epiphany or 3 after having a chance to think about it and look at the list of those that are already there and have been talked about in the past. With that, I think we are at the point that we can adjourn. Emily, am I correct?
You are correct. You
Excellent.
are. Yep.
And we're doing good time. I think we always intend to end by 8 o'clock. And so we're doing well. And the timing is the same face to face, right? 6 to 8 when we're face to face.
Yes.
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting. Are you supposed to motion that?
I don't know that we have to motion that.
Okay.
That motion is always in order.
That motion is always unanimous. So, but I think I am entitled to declare the meeting adjourned as of 7:42 and to wish everyone a very happy holiday season, however they celebrate the holidays. Celebrate them well and celebrate them safely. So thanks to everyone, and I look forward to